need to have a talk about Obsidian Entertainment because two of their games, Avowed and The Outer Worlds 2, both released last year, have been colossal disappointments. And with the recent news that Xbox might be closing studios, I really want to talk about Obsidian Entertainment because they have consistently shown that under their own IP, they can't make a solid game, right? Outer Worlds 2 innovated in a lot of ways to the first game. I'm not going to deny that. They did a lot of good jobs. But a bigger problem is that they fumbled in terms of its actual writing and execution. I don't understand how you had twice the amount of time to make the game and your story is 4 times as bad. I don't understand how you wrote worse companions. I don't understand how the exploration, even though there is more to do, is worse. I don't understand how after several years of also developing the game, moving over to Unreal Engine 5, it is one of the worst optimized games I've ever seen in my entire life. I was going to replay The Outer Worlds 2 for this video. I was going to make a video about it, right? Doing it like a year later. I literally refused to play it because of its performance issues. I should not be with a 4070 graphics card and a high-end AMD CPU struggling at around 45 frames on medium settings. That is disgraceful, even with DLSS on. That is an embarrassment. Obsidian Entertainment should be embarrassed. And not even talking about Avowed, a game that I completely understand was supposed to be a multiplayer project and then they rebooted it into a single player project. Understandable. I don't know why they still decided to, take the multiplayer bone structure and just move that over to a single player game because that doesn't work because then you make a lackluster game. Yes, its combat was good, but its narrative was also bad. Its companions were bad. Its world was interesting to explore, I'll give you that. And there were so many different kinds of enemies, but the rest of it was just hollow. And that's the problem with Obsidian's games, except Grounded, because Grounded for some reason is their big hit with over 20 million players. Like, congratulations to that small team at Obsidian, because yes, you guys succeeded. You made a great survival game. But the mainline developers at Obsidian are struggling with making games that aren't hollow. They're struggling with making games that can actually have a focus on actual good role-playing mechanics. Why the fuck we had less factions in the second Outer Worlds game that we could side with than in the first game blows my mind. Why couldn't we side with the Protectorate in the second game? Why is that not an option? What the fuck are we doing, Obsidian? How simple is that where you can side as the bad guy or with the bad guys in your fucking video game? You allow us to side with Caesar's Legion in Fallout New Vegas, and yet we can't side with the most bare bones Disneyfied villain? Like, yes, they have dark sides to them. Why can't we join that? Why limit us in our role-playing abilities? And it's so disappointing because I want to like Outer Worlds 2. I want to love the Outer Worlds 2 because I'm a massive fan of the first game. I will defend the first game to the ends of the earth. I will, because I understood the struggles that studio went through, right? They had a limited budget and they had to make a smaller AA type game, and they still did an awesome job with it. They did a fantastic job. They did a great job with what they were given. The companions were good. The story was good. The replayability was there. The size of the game was perfect. A 15-hour game that is extremely replayable, I could play through 3 times in a row without getting bored. But when The Outer Worlds 2 is a 45-hour experience and the majority of the experience is hollow and boring, I don't want to replay it. I had to force myself to reinstall it just to get footage for the video. And I uninstalled it right after because I realized, again, because of performance issues and because of how hollow the game is, I don't want to fucking play it. I don't want to play the upcoming DLC expansions. I don't care. It is so disappointing to the lengths that the studio has gotten to, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lost developers in Xbox's upcoming closure of studios and layoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. It would be disappointing, but I wouldn't be surprised. And don't come at me with like oh my god, there's so many former Obsidian developers that aren't there. The only main one that isn't there anymore is Chris Avellone. The only one. Josh Sawyer is still there. Tim Kaine went back for actual watching over of the Outer Worlds 2 development. Like, his name is literally in the credits of the game. He's there. All of the old developers are there that made Fallout New Vegas, that made Pillars of Eternity. The problem, however, is that you're not getting them on projects that would actually be successful. Apparently, The Outer Worlds 2 had a $100 million budget, which makes sense. That is exactly what Matt Booty, one of the people who work at Xbox, wanted. He wanted all of these smaller studios to make $50 to $100 million games that they could sell through Game Pass and then hopefully make some money back through its copies. But apparently as well, The Outer Worlds 2 only sold 1 million copies. Like, go fucking figure, right? I mean, when you try to make the game $80 at launch, and then you pull back because you realize even that's too much, realistically, 70 is too much. If The Outer Worlds 2 sold at $40, I guarantee you the game would have made its money back. Guarantee you the game would have made its money back through copies. Xbox needs to understand here that you can't sell The Outer Worlds 2 as this extreme huge RPG when other games like Baldur's Gate 3 sold at $60 and are way bigger, have way much more content, have better writing, have better story, have better characters, better combat. You just can't sell us on the idea that these big games from Obsidian are actually going to be worth those high prices. If the other was to, again, $40 would have made its money back. It is not that hard to figure out, but unfortunately enough, you have several standards here. You have the standard of Obsidian not being able to go full out, right? $100 million is a lot, but they can't really go full out. You have the standard of Xbox with its horrible marketing structure and its horrible presentation of The Outer Worlds 2. And then you also have the situation of the game is just lackluster in comparison to literally anything else that Obsidian has put out. I feel like they innovated a lot. I feel like the animations have been heavily improved. I feel like the environments have been heavily improved. I feel like there's a lot more enemy types. I feel like there's definitely a lot more content, but it's hollow. It's like, I don't want to play it. You're not going to get me through this subpar 40 FPS experience on a high fucking NPC just because you want to move to Unreal Engine 5 because you guys refuse to optimize the game. Because you guys refuse to actually make sure that the game runs at a standard, literally medium to low settings on a fucking 4070 graphics card, and I'm running at 45 FPS with DLSS on. That is a fucking embarrassment. That is a problem. And I even lowered my FOV, and I was still struggling under 60 frames per second in the open world sections, with barely anything in them. What the fuck, Obsidian? This is a disappointment, and you know what? I made a review on Avowed last year. I shat on it because I wanted to love it. I bought the early access edition. I put 35 hours of time into it. And after all of that, I sat down and thought about it, and I realized this game is the most mediocre piece of shit that I've ever played in my entire life. Its combat was fun, world to explore, but its story was bad. Its companions were bad. And you know what? The only fucking companion I liked out of Avowed was Kai. Because Kai is voiced by the same voice actor that voiced was Garrus from Mass Effect. The only reason I liked Kai was because of his iconic voice. Literally every other reason that you could like a companion, there was no fucking point. I hated the companions. It reminded me of Dragon Age the Veilguard, where I'm just playing it, I'm talking with these characters, and I'm thinking, I like none of you. None of you speak to me. None of you I want to actually bring with me on a, like, oh, let's go out and explore, and I can hear their funny dialogue. The only fucking reason I would bring these companions out is because you kind of need to progress, because I also played Avowed on the Path of the Damned difficulty, the hardest difficulty in the game, and I beat it, and it was fun. Again, the combat was fun. It was very exploitable by the end, but it was also fun. And it's just the hollowness of these games, however, really break it down to understanding how, like, I'm not going to be surprised if Obsidian gets shut down or if they get regulated to other projects that Microsoft just tells them to do. I don't give a fuck if Obsidian wants to make an Avowed 2. I don't give a shit. You tell Bethesda to get this fucking Obsidian team on a Fallout game. I don't give a shit. I am done with allowing Xbox Studios to do whatever the fuck they want, okay? I'm so serious here. Compulsion made South of Midnight. Fucking flopped. Apparently sold only 500,000 copies on a $100 million budget. That's not fucking profitable. Shut the studio down. You have so many... Double Fine. Double Fine is so disappointing too, because I know Tim Schafer is a legend in the industry, and he's made fantastic games, but they're not fucking selling. Like, I'm personally done with these studios not being able to perform, not only in sales and in copies, which shouldn't matter to me, but it matters to the company, but also in games itself. Keeper and Kiln, I don't give a shit. They're not games I want to play, so why the fuck would I be okay with you guys wasting years developing them? I don't want to see an Outer Worlds 3, and that disappoints me because I love the Outer Worlds franchise. I love everything about it. I love its comedy. I love its dark humor. I love all of that stuff. I don't want to see a third game. I definitely don't want to see an Avowed 2. The next fucking thing I want to see from Obsidian is a fucking Fallout game. And even coming down to their smaller projects, Pentiment by Josh Sawyer. Holy shit, why was that game so good? Out of everything you guys have put out in the last 5 years, both grounded games, Pentiment, Outer Worlds 2, and Avowed, why the fuck is Pentiment your best game? And why is it your best game? How did that have the highest quality writing and best storyline and RPG mechanics I think I've ever seen out of one of their games? Like, I'm not even kidding. Pentiment, go fucking play it. It is an awesome video game, and I'm amazed that that quality bar wasn't moved to their bigger RPGs. It astounds me. And it's like, look, if Obsidian is regulated to these small 10, 15-hour experiences, do that. They're not good at making massive open worlds. They're not. They've done it with Avowed in the Outer Worlds 2. They failed twice. Make them and regulate them to smaller 15-hour experiences that they can release every 1 to 2 years. Because this is not the way to go for this studio. They are not a studio that can make giant games because they get bloated. They just make the worlds too big, and there's not enough focus on what is actually good. This is the same problem that happened with Bethesda. You overbloat them, like with Starfield. You made them too big, and now the game is hollow as shit. You realize how hollow their worlds are when there's nothing to fucking do.